Welcome to the MedSpa Success Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Shockley with MedSpa Magic Marketing, and this is where MedSpa and aesthetics practice owners come to discover strategies and tactics that help them better market and manage their practices so they can grow, improve profitability, and have more financial freedom. I'm excited today to be joined by Kim Burke. Kim is the founder and medical director of KISS Aesthetics. She's a certified nurse practitioner and is listed as one of the top 100 best injectors in America. She also trains the best in the industry by instructing the KISS Academy, her own private injectable training course. We're going to talk about how Kim grew a successful business from scratch, how she goes about hiring and managing a team of A players and how critical that is to operating a successful med spa, and then some things she's done from just a marketing and client acquisition standpoint with consults and just some other best practices that have helped her grow a super successful business in the Chicagoland area. So with that being said, let's get right into today's interview. Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, Ricky. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. I guess for those that aren't familiar, could you give us a little bit of a background on yourself and your business? Your business is, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm a nurse practitioner by trade. I am the owner of KISS Aesthetics Chicago. So we have 2 locations in the Southwest Burbs, and they're about 45 minutes away from each other. We have 1 location in the town that we're currently living in, and then we have another location actually in the area that I grew up in. So I have a lot of contacts there, and it just felt kind of natural to have. That was actually our first location, was the area that I grew up in, and slowly and kind of organically the other location came about just because I realized, I have a lot of clients and friends that live in my immediate area, and I would love to be able to service them a lot easier. And the fact that even if I didn't grow as a business, it would just be nice to have something close to home for me to go and, do some office hours at. And honestly, that location has actually grown quicker and it has a larger clientele than our original location, which is kind of unusual because where we live, we're in the middle of nowhere-ish. We have grain elevators across the street from our location. We're in the downtown area of Minooka. Having said that, it's still about 45 miles outside of the city. And we get a lot of phone calls when people are on their way and they're like, I think I'm lost. And we're like, nope. You see corn, you see grain elevators, you're in the right spot. And they're like, really? And it's just really interesting because as soon as they walk into our practice, they're like, wow, this doesn't feel like it should be in this town. And we're like, I know, that's the whole point. And so slowly, we have had other competitors, in the area start businesses very similar to ours. And, it's in a way, I guess, a compliment. But it is what it is. We're continuing to do what we do, which at the end of the day is provide excellent customer service, amazing results, and have people want to come back and tell their friends. And, the whole experience of, that was fun. They enjoy the camaraderie, the fact that they see that we're having fun with this and we enjoy what we do, and they feel that and they want to pass that along to the people that they love and care about because they want them to experience the same thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. As we were kind of preparing for the interview, I looked at your reviews, and it's very rare you see someone with that many reviews maintaining like a 5-star rating on Google. So I want to get into some of those things around patient care too. So going back to the decision to start a med spa, what made you actually want to start your own business and not just be an injector somewhere?
Well, that's a great question. So from the first, I started working when I was like 13 or 14 years old, at the neighborhood restaurant until I was in my late 30s. I could say that out of all the companies I've worked for, whether they were healthcare related or if they were, completely out of the healthcare industry, I worked for one company that I felt valued and as if they actually cared about their employees. And it was It was kind of disheartening because, especially when you're in the healthcare industry and you're taking care of people in the hospital setting, let's say, for example, where these people are sick and they need you, and we're doing more with less, and more patients, less support staff, supplies are limited, and just the expectation keeps getting higher and higher and higher, and that doesn't feel good. So one of the biggest things that I wanted to this started off as being kind of a side gig, as most people start in their injecting.
Yeah. Yep.
I was working full time as a family nurse practitioner. I had a fabulous job where I had amazing benefits and made great money. I just wasn't using my brain per se. Like, it was a very kind of mindless job, but extremely flexible. And in my head, I thought I was going to retire from that company. And once I started kind of taking some classes and learning how to inject, I really felt empowered. And I was like, you know what? I can do this, and I think I can do this well, and I think I can balance working my current job and also injecting clients. So I started doing that for a couple months, I would say, and then I was finding that my real job was getting in the way. And if I had a handful of injectable clients on my schedule, I was like, oh, I actually have to go to work today too. And, it was just a decision I had to make where I wanted to do, I had to pick. And I was really lucky that I had the support of my husband, because once, like, again, like I said, the position that I had with the company that I had was extremely, extremely lucrative and easy and all the things that checked all the boxes. But here I am trying, I said, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go on this journey, and I don't know what it's going to look like, I don't know, he's pretty brave for being on board. And so that's kind of how this started. I got to the point where I realized I couldn't do it alone, because it was just me. I was booking the appointments. I was running my social media. I was trying to, get a website up and running. I was marketing. I was ordering product. I was doing POS. I was doing all of the things. And I sort of lost my sense of balance with my life, my life in general, because I went into this feeling like I refuse to fail. Like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and it's going to work. Period. End of story. There is zero room for failure. Just more of a pride thing, honestly. It wasn't even like a financial thing. It was more of just like, if this is something that I'm going to commit myself to doing, it's going to work. So I put my everything into trying to be all of the things, and found that I really didn't know how to balance. I really had a hard time giving up the control of, bringing on people. Am I bringing on the right people? Are they going to do the things the way I would do them? Are they going to, what if I hire another injector and the patient is unhappy because they've been seeing me? And then what if I potentially lose them? And, it was very scary, but it was eventually something that I had to do. Actually, at a certain point, I stepped away from my own business and decided that, because I'm having such a hard time balancing, my work and life, things at home and family. I actually I took a position within a plastic surgery group, and I was like, maybe I just need to clock in, clock out. That way I can check the box of doing what I love, is injecting, but I don't have to do the back end of it. I don't have to manage, booking my appointments and ordering my products and all of the things. But I realized within less than a year that wasn't it. I was not happy. I was like, and not to say that they didn't, we ran our businesses, and the way I like to put it is that we have very different business models, and that's okay. It's just, it didn't fit me. So I decided to go back I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go to do my own business again. And I'm just going to really try to balance it. So having said that, it's always been a challenge, but that's when, I had to kind of release the reins and hire the right people and make sure that whether they're talking to me or somebody else, or if they're seeing me to get their injections or somebody else, they are going to have the same seamless experience. So that was really, really important to me. So that it took some time for me to get comfortable with it, but now I'm at the point where it's fabulous because we've cultivated an amazing team, and I feel so confident in all of the team members that regardless of who is at the forefront of Kiss Aesthetics, they are creating that experience the same way I would. So that takes time and a lot of training and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it's all about finding the right people.
I think that's one of the things that's actually really cool about this industry. And I always say this, even like with my business as a marketing person, it's, you got into this because you like doing what you like doing.
Yeah.
And the business is the part that you had to figure out
100%.
And delegating. And you actually care about your patients and the people that you serve. So that gives you this little bit of hesitation when it comes to delegating and trying to figure out how to connect the dots to actually grow a business.
Yeah.
But I love that the heart of like serving your patients and your clients is at the core of that. And I think that's a common thread for a lot of people. A lot of people started out the way that you started.
Yeah.
And this wasn't on my list of kind of questions or topics, but I really like this topic kind of branch off. When you decide, because there are a lot of people that are in that situation, they might be pretty successful. They might be doing around, $1 million a year in business, but they're the only injector. And they're very hesitant. They don't really know what the next step is to bring on other people that are going to provide the same level of care and service. So how did you go thinking about and planning when it came to delegation? And how much of it is hiring the right people and or having the right processes for making sure those people do things the way that you want them done?
Yeah, good question. Once again, my business model is a little bit different than most because when you talk to people, people will always say, oh my God, don't hire friends. Do not hire friends. That's the worst thing you can do. So the first person I hired was my best friend. She is a CPA by trade. And she asked me, who's doing your books? Like, who's handling the financials? And I was like, what do you mean? I keep all my receipts. I'm super organized. And she's like, there's a little more to this. So I brought her on very part-time. And I also brought on another friend of mine to kind of help me with the back end, phone calls, bookings, website, social media kind of things. And that was extremely helpful, obviously, and they're still with me to this day. I also needed another injector. Like, I specifically remember getting the phone call. I was on vacation, and my girlfriend, who was my employee, said, you have 35 people on your wait list. Like, this isn't realistic. You're going to lose people. They're going to drop off because they're not going to wait. You need to hire somebody in order to accommodate these people. And I was like, oh crap. Yeah. So I actually, the first injector that I hired she was one of my patients. So everybody on our team, there seems to be some sort of personal connection. A lot of our people are not just randoms off the street because they sent a resume. It's either I've known you personally, you were a client, or you're a friend of a friend, or you came, very highly recommended by someone else who works within the practice. We very rarely just hire cold, I would say. And that has helped us a lot. I had my first injector that I hired. Her name's Ashley. She's still with us today. And this girl is a hustler. She, was the kind of girl that since she was 16 had 3 jobs, and that's all she knew. She, when I first brought her on board, it was observing and training, and she worked nights at the hospital, and she would shadow me all day long, go straight to the hospital, work a night shift, maybe go home and sleep a couple hours, and then come back the next day. Like, crazy work ethic, and she just proved to me that she wants this and she's making it a priority, and she was driven and motivated and hungry. And those are the things that we look for when we're hiring. Skill we can train. I'm not worried necessarily about that. Ashley is a trainer for one of the companies for the threads. I train for 3 companies for the pharmaceutical companies. Like, skills, we got you. Personality, drive, motivation, hustle, hunger, those are things, and just the charisma, those are things that you can't teach. So those are the things that we look for when we hire, even if it's somebody, the front desk, injector, esthetician, back office. Those are things that make a good practice exceptional.
That makes complete sense. So the things that you can't train for, those are the priorities in terms of hiring. These are the things that you have to have, the intangibles that are just, at this point, they're inherent. You either have them or you don't.
Yep.
And we can train in terms of the skill development.
Yep, pretty
Yeah,
much.
that makes a ton of sense. And then when it comes to hiring friends or people that you know, at least through some sort of connection, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to growing your business is making sure that you're making good hiring decisions, and that you have people that have those intangibles, that have good work ethic and follow through and good attitude.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard to guarantee that when you're hiring cold. So if you have some sort of familiarity with the people that you're hiring, you can kind of check that box.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I think that's a really good strategy. So when it comes to being a good injector and developing the skill set side, obviously that's something that you took very seriously to get to the point where you are as an injector trainer. How did you go about developing your skill set, and why was that important to you?
So one of the things that has always been important to me is education. I feel like nobody will ever fault me by learning. So I just kind of took that and ran with it. I of course, we all started somewhere. So I took one injection course, and to be honest with you, the first injection course I took was a nightmare. It was a huge group of people. It was in like a hotel. It was one instructor. And honestly, I think I left there more confused than when I came. And that was a very notable experience for me, because in my head, I said, you know what? If and when I get to the point where I feel like I'm skilled at this craft enough to train others, I know exactly what not to do, because that didn't feel good. I didn't like it. It wasn't a good learning environment. It was expensive. It was very little hands-on. It felt cold. It was all the things that I wouldn't want as a student. So having said that, when we offer injectable training, we do group trainings. We have like a level 1 and a level 2, and we also offer private trainings and shadow days. And the biggest thing that I make sure of is our small class size. I want it to be intimate. I want people to have a lot of hands-on. I want them to get to know me, and they can reach out to me if they have any questions afterwards. The biggest question is, they always want to know what to do next. And education, I just tell them, invest in yourself. Nobody will ever fault you for investing in yourself. And it just proves that you are serious about this industry, that you have, these courses are expensive. Let's be real. And the fact that you've taken your own money and your own time and didn't just put it on your employer as if they'll just train me, they'll show me what to do. The fact that they've taken that initiative is huge. So that's something I always look for when hiring. We typically tend to hire from our group injectable trainings, because it just, we get a great pool of potential applicants. I get to know them, they get to know me and the practice and like how we do things, and it becomes very natural. So, we typically always have like a large stack of resumes on file that we can pull from when we're looking to hire that right person. So that in itself is amazing. And I've been lucky enough to, help others within the Chicagoland area. People will reach out to me. They're like, oh my God, I need an injector, please. Do you have anybody? Send them my way. And I'm like, dig through my resumes. I'm like, she lives near you. Give her a call.
Cool, yeah.
All that. But that's extremely helpful, having that pool to kind of choose from. That helps. And then I can put a name to the face, and I can see, they almost don't realize it, but it's like almost like a pseudo interview.
Yeah.
an
And then you
unofficial
become a
interview,
matchmaker. Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'm watching how they interact. I'm watching to see if they're taking the initiative to, be the first one. Are they, sitting there quiet and completely meek and doesn't know how to have a conversation? Or are they charismatic and smiling and like really trying and motivated? So that's really helpful.
You mentioned earlier, like there's a big difference in terms of the success of your business from being good to being great. I don't remember what context that came up in originally in the conversation, but I think that's in this business, and I think most businesses, you're not really winning as a med spa because you're doing something that's super innovative that nobody else is doing. You're winning because you're doing it a little bit better than everybody else. So I think the same thing is true with injectors. So how do you make sure that the injectors that work for you continue to stay educated, that they continue to be top tier providers that actually know what they're doing, at a superior level?
Yeah, sure. So we offer, we're actually we're still a small business. We have about 17 employees between our two locations. And I always find it interesting when we go to conferences and things like that all over the country. When I go to these management and leadership or business track kind of sessions, and they talk about benefits and what sorts of things do you do to keep your staff happy or to retain your current staff. And I really feel like it's interesting because we have set up our business so that we are able to offer things like health insurance, vision, dental, 401k, CME money. And those things, that's the reality is people need insurance. People want that allowance of this industry is growing and changing every day. And if you're not at the forefront of it, somebody else is. And clients are educated. Social media is in your face. People ask for treatments by product. They're like, oh, I want such and such in my lips and I need 20 units right here, even though this is medicine, right? At the end of the day, we are practicing medicine and these are prescription drugs. And it doesn't necessarily work like that. But this industry is unique in that way where they will request and demand certain products based off of the marketing of that company. So it's important for me to make sure our providers are trained and they are at the forefront of the changes within the industry to keep up, because our clients, they know what they want. They're educated for the most part, and we have to be the one to say, actually, I see what you're saying, but the result that you're looking for is going to be better achieved with product X over the product that you're requesting. And here's why. And by then, honestly, they are usually 100% receptive to that. Very rarely do we get pushback when somebody says, I want this over this. It's honestly a non-issue. We don't necessarily even have that conversation in the treatment room. I just say, okay,
Yeah.
yep, I know what you're thinking, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And they're like, sounds good. And so that's not even, I think being educated as to using the right product, the right placement, the rheology of it, the duration of how long they can expect these treatments to last, just educating them, that's huge.
This episode is brought to you by Med Spa Magic Marketing, my agency. We help med spas and aesthetics practices grow with more effective marketing strategies. And I know that's a vague phrase, right? That's a vague claim. So I have an offer for you. I offer this to any new prospects. If you're interested in exploring another marketing option, a new agency, or just getting into Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads for the first time, I'd love to show you why we're different, what we're doing for clients. And we can do that via a 1.5 hour planning session where I'll outline a specific marketing plan and I'll give you all of the blueprints that we would implement if we were to do business together. Now you can take that, use that on your own, hire someone else to help you execute it, or work with us. We really don't hold anything back on that strategy call. And I think you'll have a lot of confidence in how you manage your marketing investment moving forward, understanding some of the nuances that can help you implement more effective marketing strategies for your business. So if you want to do that, you can go to medspamagicmarketing.com. In terms of, you mentioned one of your first injectors still with you today. In terms of retention and the challenges that come with retaining team members, especially when people are wanting to start their own things. There's a lot of competition. Yep. People are always looking for specific things in terms of pay structure. How do you create stickiness, knowing that your injectors are ultimately they're at the forefront of the client relationship. So how do you create stickiness so that those people want to stay with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I don't want to say it's definitely in my brain, at the forefront of my brain every day, is that, despite having contracts and employment agreements and all of the things, especially now with the new FTC, coming September, the non-compete, which potentially may, become a thing. I try really hard in order to create that environment where people don't want to leave. They are comfortable, they like it, and it's the simple things that I originally was trying to read too much into it and be running a business and managing people was very scary to me because I'm clinical. I don't have that background. And so when there was an issue, within the staff, or somebody wanted to quit, or there was problems, I would clam up because I was like, oh, I don't know how to navigate this. I can handle a patient complication, a crappy review. I can handle, somebody upset. But when there's a problem with an employee, that's not my jam, and I don't want any part of it. So, I kind of had to learn the hard way and say, you know what, as a business owner and a leader, these are skills that I need to learn, and I need to feel comfortable with that. So having said that, and of course I never stop learning. So I don't want it to be like, oh, I don't care so much about the injectable, education, because of course that is still extremely important to me. But, I had immersed myself so heavily in the clinical side of it and learning the rheology and how products work and education, that what I didn't feel comfortable with was, like I said, the managing of people. And so I had to shift. So I would say in 2024, I kind of made, and this, who talks about their New Year's resolutions in damn near July? I still am, because I'm holding myself accountable to it, is that in 2024, I made a commitment to myself and to my team that I was going to be a better leader. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what it necessarily entailed, but I was going to figure it out, and that my team is important to me and they trust me, and I need to deliver on my end. So, myself, my practice manager, and Ashley, my lead injector, we have 6 or 7 injectors right now. So she's our lead injector. So we all took a leadership course. It was like management and leadership. It was through a Dale Carnegie class. It was their platform, and I highly recommend it. We learned a lot, but it just gave me the tools to feel more comfortable in order to manage and navigate the day in, day out, behind the scenes of how do you run a successful team. And that, like I said before, it's the things that are so simple. Like, I was making it way more complicated than it needed to be, just making people feel heard, right? Instead of saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, it's more of a conversation. Let's talk about this. Tell me why, like more of asking a question. Tell me why you did X, Y, and Z. What do you think that was the right thing, or do you think it should have been handled another way? By letting them come up with the idea on their own, as opposed to somebody saying, you do this, or here's our next project, go. It is a conversation. It is, listen, I'm one brain. I have one brain, and we have a team of 17 people, and 17 brains are going to come up with more ideas that are creative, and no idea is a bad idea. This is a collaboration. We'll try it. I'm open to anything. I'm open to suggestions. It's not like my idea is the only idea and this is what we're doing. We work as a team. We have our, every other week we do a team meeting, and we discuss, our goals and what our new initiatives are going to be. And it's not always driven by me, because others on the team have fabulous ideas, and I love to hear it.
Three words you use there that I loved, and I think this is a really good mindset for people. Like you said, there's so many people that get into this space that they've got the medical side training. They feel comfortable and confident with that. They start a business and they kind of just hope that they're going to figure it out. And maybe a lot of people listening to this, maybe you figured it out enough to get to the point where you are. But I think for anybody taking a look at inside critically and saying, how do I get to the next level if I want to attain something bigger than what I have now? Some of that's going to come down to developing those leadership skills. So I really like some of the words you use there: team, collaboration. So if people that work for you feel like they're on a team and it's a collaborative work environment, they're probably going to have a lot better feeling when they come into the office at the start of the day and when they check out at the end of the day, as opposed to just feeling like they're a pawn or they're just being told what to do. So I really like those two words: thinking of it as a team and always having a collaborative mindset.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the question about retention, how do you keep people there? And that's exactly it. It's making them feel empowered, that they have a voice and that they're being heard, and that I'm interested in them, that I know about them, I know what's going on in their life. It's about having just simple touch points. And, one of the things that I also learned was, I tried really hard to constantly give, positive reinforcement, but I found myself utilizing the same term. Like, I appreciate you so much. You're amazing. But then that loses value, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm saying those same things, like, you're the best, I appreciate it, I value you so much, but I'm saying it to everybody every day,
I think about this exact thing. That's why I'm laughing.
that doesn't hold weight, right? So, but to me, I'm checking the box. I'm checking my box because I'm giving them positive feedback, but to them, it's like, cool, thanks, So I've learned to kind of adjust the way I'm giving feedback, being more specific by saying, you know what, the fact that you got here early today shows me that you're prompt, you're taking initiative, and I really, really appreciate that. That's it.
I love that.
It's
Yeah.
just being specific as opposed to be like, oh, hey, oh my God, you're doing a great job, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I do feel like there are levels to this. So we try to do that too. Like, we have a core values sheet. And when somebody does something on our team, we try to point out what they did in terms of living up to a core value. Hey, this is awesome. Good job being resourceful today with this one thing. Or great job following the golden rule with how we dealt with that interaction with the client. So trying to find specifics. But I think there's some people listening to this that it would at least be a good step if they did walk around the office and said, great job, I appreciate you. Because I don't think that's how everybody treats their team. So I think at least at least as an intermediate step, that might be a good place to start. And then I love that, though. It's trying to figure out when you're giving feedback, how to make it specific so that you're showing them why you value, what you appreciate, the specific things that they're doing to help, the business succeed, and things that you specifically appreciate. That was great.
Yeah.
Great little tips and takeaways there.
So, and another thing that I just actually implemented, which I think was really, really helpful, was an exit interview. And it was one of my 3 a.m. thoughts because, being a business owner, entrepreneur, we never sleep. And if we're sleeping, our brains are still going. And,
that's the worst part.
I was just laying in bed and I was like, you know what? I really need to have that exit interview because I need that constructive feedback for me. I need to know, like, I kind of wait until the dust settles a little bit where it's not like, uncomfortable, or I give where I find that what they've moved on, we've moved on, everybody's good, we're happy, and I will reach out and I'll just be like, hey, listen, like, I see that you've moved on, we're super happy for you, things are going great for us, but I just want to touch base with you to see, like, what you liked here, where we missed the mark, what I can do better in the future. Like, what are some things, like, help me, I want to be better. So and I'm like, and be honest with me. Don't sugarcoat it. It's okay. Like, this is a safe space, like, you're no longer our employee and you don't have to filter what you're saying to me.
Yeah.
And that, I think, has been a huge opportunity for me to learn.
Yeah, I love that. So exit interview is a great little takeaway there too. You said something earlier, and I wanted to make a note and go back to this because I think this is interesting. And this is something we always think about on the marketing side of the equation. You mentioned that a lot of people, totally switching gears here for the listeners. So place for switching gears, but I had this note and I didn't want to miss it. You mentioned that so many people come into the office and they ask for a specific product. Like they don't come in going, I've been thinking about getting something. What do you recommend? You have so many people that come in, 20 units of Dysport right here, do whatever you're going to do here. First of all, what is generally the backstory with those patients? Are they coming from somewhere? Did they move to the area and they were getting services somewhere else, so they're new to you? Are they switching providers? What is generally the origin?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two kinds. I think they're the younger ones tend to be like, my girlfriend got their lips done and she had product X in her lips and it looks good, so that's what I want. And then, like I said, we have that conversation of, okay, well, let's talk about your goals and what you're thinking and about your lip shape and your structure and what we're trying to achieve. And then I choose the product that's best suited for, your goals and based off of my recommendations. So there's that. And then the other one is let's say they are new to the area, they recently moved and they are coming to us for the first time. I will listen to them. So if they have been around the block and they say, you know what, I just moved to the area. I used to see a provider in Virginia and I know I got this many units, my frontalis, this many in my glabella, this many in my crow's. I loved it. It worked great. Perfect. I'm like, there's no need to reinvent the wheel here. You know what I mean? Like there's really no sense of me trying to say, like if they're happy, why am I going to mess with that? So, if I feel like the treatment is within reason, right? So, I tend to be a little bit conservative with my talks. I always like to have room to move. I will undertreat them initially at that very first visit. And I tell them that, I'm conservative. I want the opportunity for, if in that 2-week time period, you feel like you need something tweaked or adjusted, I don't want you to come back at 2 weeks and say, I'm frozen, I'm stiff, I hate this, make it go away. And there's nothing I can do. Some people like to be frozen and that's fine, but it takes time to figure that out, right? Versus some people like to have a little bit of movement and they just want to look softer. And a lot of times people are nervous. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they like. And they appreciate when I say, you know what? I'm going to base off what I'm seeing, how many units you need, and I'm going to dial it back a little because I usually say about by a third, because I want that opportunity if in 2 weeks I have room to move. I can add more. It takes 2 seconds. It's no big deal. We document it in your chart. We figure out what your recipe is. And based off of that, if that works for you, beautiful. Boom, boom, boom. We see you every 3 to 4 months and it's in and out. It's no big deal, and they really, I see them usually go, oh, okay, thank you. That makes me feel so much better. And then also too, I think that says something about us as providers that, yes, obviously this is a business and we're here to make a profit, but I'm not looking to just, get the most money out of your pocket at that particular visit. I really want you to be happy. Period, end of story. Because there's no way to, if you piss someone off at their first Botox visit or Dysport visit, you'll never see them again. Like they will move on. So
that is an outstanding insight. And I love that because so many times we talk about in this space and you see so much advice about how to cross-sell and upsell and all these sorts of things. But ultimately, this is a business that's built on trust. Mm-hmm. And you're setting now the precedent from the initial visit that you're a trustworthy provider. You actually have their best interest at heart. You're not there to sell them something they don't need just so you can make a buck.
Yeah.
So that one little simple thing is probably creating stickiness, better patient retention, higher trusts, better reviews. Mm-hmm. That one little decision, I think, is leading to a waterfall of benefits for both the patient and the business.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're aligning your business strategy with what's best for the patient, ultimately it does pay off for your business. So I think there's a good alignment in our system, right? In our capitalist system to be doing the right thing for people. So that's the first time I've heard that, but I love that. Hey, we're going to come up with the treatment. If this is my guess of what the ideal thing is to do, but I'm going to dial it back 25, 30% of what I think the ideal thing is to do, right? You have a financial incentive to not do that. So you're building so much trust with that decision though, initially. And ultimately this is not like, I have a new patient in the door. Let me see what I can milk them for. It's let me do a really good job, make this person happy, and I hope they're here for 5 years because I'm providing them with a great patient experience and I'm actually doing what's best for them.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it feels kind of like a short-term loss, right? Like in the short term, am I losing? Am I, deterring a patient from getting a treatment? Which I hear people talk about all the time. They're like, yeah, she actually talked me out of that treatment. I mean, I've had people come in for Kybella and they're like, yeah, I'm going on a girls trip to Nashville in 3 days, but I want Kybella. I'm like, ooh, let's not do that. I'm like, let's get you on the schedule for when you get back. And like, they will leave my office and there's no transactions. And it's a loss for me, right? I had an appointment time, they came in, they were ready to pay for a treatment, but I'm like, you're going to hate me. Like, you really are going to hate me. And I don't feel right about sending you on a bachelorette party trip to Nashville with a bullfrog neck. I just don't, and so it's like I said, sometimes it feels like a short-term loss, but in the end, it's a long-term gain. At least that's the hope.
I 1,000,000% believe that to be true. This is a business that's reliant on retention. Like, your success or failure of your business ultimately relies on your ability to make your clients happy
Yeah.
and to do a good job.
Yeah.
Right? If you could have a flood of new patients every week, and if they come in and the receptionist was mean and the wait time was too long and the injector stunk at what they were doing and they just tried to sell you a bunch of stuff you didn't need, then your business is going to fail because there's only so many patients that you could possibly bring through that door.
Yeah.
And at some point you're going to run out of people that you didn't, not even just that you didn't make happy, but that you didn't thrill with the experience. Like, it wasn't a top-notch experience.
For sure.
So I think that's so important. And then it does open the door up to when you actually do have a recommendation. Let's say it's a month from now, a year from now, and you have a recommendation. Hey, we've been doing this. I've got this new thing. It's actually really cool. I think you'd benefit from this other thing that we can do.
Yeah.
They're going to trust you and they're much more likely to take that seriously, as opposed to if the first visit was trying to see what you could milk them from. Now they've got their guard up and they're every single time they come in, they're just making sure they've got the no button ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah. I think that's so many things in life, right? It's like we're so focused on the short-term benefit that we do it at the expense of what's good for us or the patient or just the general long-term play here. So I think that's an outstanding insight.
Exactly.
So in terms of the business growth, you started as a small solo provider as a side hustle. How did you grow it to the point where it is today? What were some of the critical steps or the learning lessons or the key things that you did to help level the business up to get it to the point where it is today?
Yeah. Number one, staying educated. I immersed myself. I mean, anything that I was so hungry to learn that, I made it known to all of the reps. I was Googling every conference I could attend, because I just figured the more I know as a provider, the more educated I can be, the more marketable I am. And I would put that out there. Every time I would be at a conference, it would go on social media, and that I'm learning, that I'm growing, that I'm, trying to be the best provider in aesthetics that I can be. And social media, it's a catch-22. I love it and hate it at the same time. It's amazing because there's such a large reach and it's essentially free, but it's extremely time consuming and you can get stuck in the wormhole very easily and get caught up in keeping up with the Joneses and what everyone else is doing. So it's that is tricky, but I will say initially when I first started, I was extremely consistent with posting on social media, and I was with posting and with the types of posts, just before and afters, and they were just in your face. And so people, really didn't, unless they, unfollowed me, it was just like I was at the front of the mind. So I think social media definitely, when I first started, was huge. Now we focus more, I would say, as like marketing goes, it's organic, as much as I know you're a marketing firm and you have all of these amazing tools. The growth of our business, when I say our business, like, even though it's me, I solely own it. We don't have any partners. We don't have any, investors. It's me. But when I say we as a business, it's because I don't consider myself, like, without them, I'm nothing. So when we market. It's the organic, it's the referrals, it's the word of mouth, and it's Instagram. It's I'll say Instagram, but I mean social media, and it is Google. Those are the majority. It's, when people write in, we have them fill out new patient paperwork. Those are the three. It's either a friend, Google, social media.
And I think even in the marketing realm, all you're doing is fuel to the fire of those things. So even as like a marketing provider, all we would be doing is like you're putting fuel on the fire of social with paid by adding paid reach and some strategies to close leads. Or with Google, there's an extra placement called Google Ads. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is like organic word of mouth referrals are the best way to grow your business. And if you've got good patient retention, you're going to be successful because it's only going to go in one direction. If you're retaining patients, it's only going to go in one direction. The problem I see is people thinking that marketing is going to be like a Band-Aid or it's going to solve all of the problems that are in their business, and it's not. Like, you can't spend money on marketing and fix a bad business. I think that's a David Ogilvy quote that I just messed up. But ultimately, doing a good job for your clients, being able to retain patients is what's going to make you successful. And I think sometimes people get so caught up in the shiny thing or the easy thing to do that they don't want to take a look at what they're actually doing with patient experience, with educating their providers, with growing a team and how they treat people, with managing their financials, that they miss the things that are actually going to make or break their business success. I can even see it in the podcast episodes. We've done episodes on financial planning. I'm like, man, this is so important. Like, this is way more important than worrying about marketing, because if you don't have a sound financial plan, you're going to be screwed if you don't understand how to manage your money, and you're drowning in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of machine debt. You don't have any patience. You're just setting yourself up for failure, but it doesn't sound fun. So people don't listen to those episodes as much as they listen to the episode as like the top Facebook ads strategies that are trending for 2024. So again, I've said it a million times on this podcast, but that's another reminder to look at the way that you run your business, the fundamental elements of running a business, operations, financial management and planning, how you treat your team, and you're going to be in a much better place, patient care, than you would if you worry about the shiny object in the room.
Yeah. That's kind of been our motto, per se. Our mantra for 2024 is that we're going deeper, not wider. We are not necessarily trying to grow our team. We are figuring out who's really good at what, and putting them in the position so that they can just soar and shine. That's, and we're, the device companies hate me this year because I'm like, we're not buying a device in 2024. Sorry, we're not.
Yeah.
They're like, especially now it's the end of Q2. So I'm getting, blow up through my email and my, oh, hey, how are you? I'm like, oh, geez. And I'm just upfront with them. I'm just like, listen, I know sales is tough. I appreciate what you're doing. It's the end of Q2. Hate to burst your bubble. We're not buying a device in 2024. I'm just like, don't waste your time. This is where we're at. And they appreciate that,
Yeah.
They don't.
I know this wasn't on our agenda, but this is another topic that has come up a lot. One of the things that I see with the practices that are struggling the most is they're so overwhelmed by debt, and in large part, it's machine debt. So they don't have enough patients, and they've been sold to kind of a bill of goods by the device manufacturers, and they've got hundreds of thousands, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of dusty machines sitting in the back room. And they're in the situation where like the owner can't take home a paycheck. They're struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling to make payroll. And when we look at the culprits, sometimes it's rent, sometimes it's just not having an efficient team. But the one thing that seems to be a glaring common thread are those device payments. How have you gone about making decisions with device payments, debt, financing, things like that?
So initially, I would say we ran a really lean canvas, meaning that, when it was just me, the overhead was very minimal, right? I mean, I didn't take a paycheck for years. I was initially in our first location, it was a salon suite. I was renting a room. Overhead was low. I was buying product as, I could see my schedule start to fill up. I didn't like place this huge, gigantic order. We didn't offer skincare. We had 0 devices. It was me. I had no desire to run the devices and learn them. I just wanted to inject. So, like I said, it was a very lean canvas. There wasn't a whole lot of overhead. And then as things started to grow and progress, I was hearing feedback from my patients where they would be like, oh, I just went down the street and had my laser, but I come to you for injectables. And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that you're going down the street, because the chances of you going down the street, like, they offer tox, they offer
Hmm.
filler, like, there's a chance that I could lose you, but I am not offering you things to help with your skin. I can't get rid of your brown spots with my tox. I can't get rid of your laxity and, build your collagen with, well, I can, I guess, with Sculptra, but it's just different. And so I was starting to see the void of, I don't want to risk losing people. And so I was open for years without any devices. And we slowly started bringing skincare, which, great, fine. Retail skincare is people need it. It wasn't priority to me. I was all about injecting. And then once we purchased our first device, I needed to be sure that I had somebody capable and competent to run it, because I knew nothing about lasers at that point. I was like, I want somebody who will be able to, I'll buy the machine, but they need to run with it. So that's what we did. I didn't know what to buy. I hired an esthetician who was my friend at the time. We worked together at the plastic surgery group, and she highly recommended a certain laser. And I was like, cool, let's get it. If you feel like you can run it and sell it and get great results, let's do it. And so that's honestly how it started. And, it's challenging too with having two locations, because we want to be able to do laser at both locations. We want to be able to do RF microneedling at both locations. Well, that means double the devices. So we're at that point now. We have, our devices. We have our, laser hydrofacial and our RF microneedling and skin pen at each of the locations, and we're good. We don't do body contouring. We don't do, cool sculpting, M-sculpt. We don't do any of that. I've had those treatments myself, and I'm a little underwhelmed. So in order for us to purchase the device, I need to be able to stand behind it and feel comfortable recommending and show people my results and be like, look at, okay, let me just show you. This was me in 2013, look at all my pigment and sun damage. And, this is 10, 12 years later, and my skin looks better now than it did when I was, 12 years younger. And it's because I'm doing all of the things. So I really have to believe in something in order to make it work. Like I can't, in good consciousness, recommend a treatment that I know is garbage. And I'm not saying that there's, those things are garbage. It's just not something that fits within our practice right now.
I think that's a great way to do it. So my key takeaways for the listeners there is, one, you started adding devices that supplemented what you were already doing.
100%.
So it wasn't like, let me get into something totally different and get like a sculpting machine. It's like, hey, I'm trying to make your face look the way that you want it to look. I've got this part of it down. Let me think about how I'm going to expand into something that can supplement that.
Yep.
Let's stick to that. Let's make sure that it's a device that we're confident is going to be able to produce a result.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're going to be able to stand by. So, and let's be conservative with it. So let's not come out of the gate and like buy 75 devices we can't afford. Exactly. You started lean for a good amount of time and then slowly added devices that you were confident in. Did you make sure that those were successful and you were able to sell them? One of the things that I always find is if you bring on a new device and you can't sell it to your existing patients, you're screwed. Because if the people that already know, like, and trust you aren't going to buy it from you, another thing, marketing's not going to fix that problem.
Yeah.
It means that people are not that interested in the product or service unless maybe your price point is so dirt cheap that they're just buying it because you're the cheapest person in town.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. Any thoughts on financing debt? Is there a specific formula you use to manage when it's appropriate to bring a device payment on? How are you okay with having a payment? Do you want it to be a certain percentage? Are you trying to pay them off in a certain window? What does that look like?
So once again, I'm very lucky to have a practice manager who is a CPA, and not just any CPA. She's actually a very, very good, reputable, and we still have an accountant who handles our corporate taxes and all of that. But every time I meet with him, like I just met with him last week, he's always like, you're really lucky, because not everyone, people who have an accountant they're not all created the same, so I'm really lucky. And the fact that, number one, she's extremely logical and level-headed, but she also keeps me out of jail, meaning that she makes me pay my taxes, and she also keeps me in check because I'm more of the and one. Like if the rep comes and I want, and it's all shiny and glittery and looks fun and is, on paper creating these amazing results, and I'll like go to her and I'll be like, oh my God, listen, we need to get this device and here's why. She'll just look at me and she'll be like, we're not doing this, doesn't make financial sense. And then I'm like, so it's like a mommy daddy thing. Like sometimes I'll call up, like I have to ask daddy, I have to ask, the numbers girl, because she knows those numbers inside and out, and she knows what we can afford and what we can't afford. And I mean, I hate to say it, but she honestly understands it more than I do.
And that was one of your first hires, right?
Yeah.
This is the one that was.
Yeah. And
that's really interesting.
And so when it usually, we've been lucky enough where, from a tax standpoint, we pay through the nose, which I guess good for us because that means we're profitable, but also it's very painful. Like I feel like I'm hemorrhaging, to the government. But having said that, she'll be like, I think you're going to be better off. We have the financial means to purchase a device, and it will also help you from a tax standpoint. So this year, let's try to figure out what device is going to fit, our practice. So that's huge. And like, but this year, for example, yeah, we could have a huge tax write-off if we purchase a device, but we're still spending money on something we don't need. Yeah, we could get the write-off for the tax portion, but like we don't need it. So, it's just about balancing, and, all of our devices that we have are paid off, which is probably unusual. I don't know. I don't necessarily have that conversation. So, the one that we have, so the devices we have, I mean, no, not necessarily. We finance all the devices we've purchased up front and outright, with the exception of the very first hydrofacial that we purchased. We ended up financing it over a year, which whatever, the finance rate was low. And then when we bought our first Cyton, like that was like more than my first house. That was way more than my first house. Like that was, I was like, what are we doing? This is so ridiculous. But anyway, so we did take out a business loan for that. And at that point, the interest rates were really low. And it just got to the point, like, even when I sat down with the accountant, he was like, yeah, I mean, you could pay it off, if you feel like you need to, but if you don't want to, your interest rate is really low, so it's not a huge deal. So we just kind of looked at what we have, our P&L and our financials, and tried to kind of forecast what we're trending to be for the year. And then based off of that, like we recently just completely paid off our Cyton. So that was the one that we had a note on for some time.
Bottom line is you're buying things that you can afford. I think a lot of people, when they make a machine purchase, they're buying it in the hopes that that machine is going to allow them to afford the machine.
Yes. And that's a lot of the companies will pitch it like that. They'll be like, you only need to do X number of treatments and your device is paid off. And
there's no plan to get X number of treatments is the problem. And then the thing goes out of style or out of vogue, and people don't even want it anymore. And
not only that, one of the questions that you have to ask them, which, you learn the hard way, is like, okay, so according to you, what should we be charging for these treatments? And then let's look at the reality of what people are really charging. Because they'll say, oh, you can charge $1,500 a treatment. And then you look at what people are charging, and they're charging like $700. And you're like, wait, what? So you really
there goes the math.
Yeah, you have to be savvy. You can't, as much as we love our reps and we rely on them, but like you can't always trust exactly what we're being told,
Yeah, you have to do your own analysis. I love that you have someone like that in your corner, and that happened to be one of your first hires. I'd say for people listening to this episode, we did an episode a few episodes ago with Jessica Nunn from Maven Financial Partners. I would go back and listen to that episode because she kind of talks about that. You don't want to just have somebody in your corner that at the end of the year tells you how much you owe the IRS. You also want someone that is helping you make good financial decisions ahead of time.
Yeah.
Looking at where is the business right now? Where are we trying to go? Is this a good decision if we're bringing on, an additional investment with like a new machine or new team members or anything like that. So being ahead of it and actually financially planning instead of just at the end of the year checking your tax bill, I think is an important thing to do.
It's very true.
Okay, well, Kim, thank you so much. Kim, I'm going to put the links to your practice, Kiss Aesthetics, and also your injector training in the show notes. So anybody that's interested in either one of those resources, make sure that you click those links below in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or any of the platforms. And Kim, thanks so much for being on the podcast. We hope to see you again soon.
Of course. Thank you so much, Ricky. I appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. This podcast is a production of Med Spa Magic Marketing. If your med spa or aesthetic practice is in need of digital marketing services, help with advertising on Facebook, Instagram, Google, lead generation, and booking more appointments, please visit medspamagicmarketing.com.